Have you ever felt like there's this deeper game going on in society?
Like something beyond what we see on the surface.
Yeah, yeah. Like you're trying to figure out how this complex machine works,
Uh-huh.
but you can only see like the levers and the pulleys,
Right.
not the actual engine that's driving it all.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. This is the Deep Dive, your shortcut to understanding all those forces that shape our world.
And today we're going to explore the ideas of Antonio Gramsci.
Gramsci!
Now, he wasn't a philosopher in like the traditional sense,
Right, right.
sitting in an ivory tower.
Not some armchair philosopher.
No, no. He was a radical journalist and a passionate revolutionary organizer
Wow.
in early 20th century Italy. Think about that. A revolutionary who ended up being one of the most insightful thinkers on how power actually works.
It's a fascinating contradiction, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, he was born in 1891 and died in 1937, so he lived through some seriously intense social and political upheaval.
Oh, absolutely.
And what's crucial about his work is that he wasn't just looking at who was in government
Right.
or who controlled the economy in a really simplistic way.
No. He was digging deeper. He was trying to understand how this cultural and political dominance actually takes weight, how it's maintained, especially in these capitalist societies that seems so stable on the surface.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're not just going to be like dusting off some old historical documents.
No.
We're going to try to uncover some insights that'll actually help you, the listener,
That's
understand these subtle but powerful currents of influence that are still at play in the world around you.
absolutely.
Our main source material comes from Gramsci's life, and most importantly, his prison notebooks.
Right. I mean, he wrote his most significant intellectual work while he was imprisoned by the fascist regime.
Talk about thinking under pressure.
Seriously.
And it's within those notebooks that we find the real gold.
That's where the good stuff is.
So our mission for this deep dive is to extract those key ideas.
Right.
The ones that offer you a new perspective on how power operates beyond just those obvious political and economic structures.
Yep.
We want to help you see that deeper level of understanding.
That's the goal.
Okay, so let's get into it. What were some of the early experiences and influences that shaped Gramsci's thinking?
Well, his early life was really formative. Born in Sardinia, which was at the time a region marked by a lot of poverty,
Okay.
his family, they faced real hardship when his father, a civil servant, was imprisoned
Wow.
on what were widely seen as politically motivated charges.
Oh, wow.
And this experience instilled in the young Gramsci, a profound resentment
Right.
towards the unified Italian state and its failures, particularly the economic disparities between the North and the South.
So right from the start, he's witnessing these systemic injustices.
Oh, yeah.
This clear imbalance of power.
Yeah. And then his move to industrial Turin was a complete game changer.
Oh, wow. Turin, okay.
Yeah, so he goes from this rural, impoverished island to this major industrial hub.
Right.
Dominated by these massive factories like FIE. This exposed him firsthand to socialist ideas
Right.
and the harsh realities of industrial labor, which was a stark contrast to his upbringing. He got really involved as a journalist and a committed socialist activist.
Well, you can picture that environment, the rapid growth of industry, the rise of these socialist movements fighting for workers' rights.
Right.
It must have been a hotbed of radical thought.
It really was. And even before his imprisonment, he was engaging with some really significant intellectual trends.
Okay.
He was influenced by Italian neo-idealism, particularly the work of Benedetto Croce, which, in simple terms, emphasized the importance of culture and consciousness in shaping reality.
Okay.
So it was a key shift away from purely materialist explanations.
Okay.
He also grappled with Machiavelli's practical approach to power, Marxist theory, the revolutionary syndicalism of Georges Sorel. Yeah, which highlighted the power of collective action and unifying myths in driving social change. Plus, he was critical of positivism,
Okay.
that belief that science could objectively explain everything.
Got it. So he was drawing from a really diverse set of ideas.
Very diverse.
So it wasn't just like a straightforward adoption of Marxist ideas. There was already a lot of critical engagement happening in his thinking.
Oh, for sure. And it's against this backdrop, facing these brutal conditions of imprisonment, that his most enduring work, the prison notebooks, began to take shape.
Which leads us to one of his most influential concepts, hegemony.
Hegemony.
It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but what did Gramsci really mean when he talked about it?
Well, at its core, hegemony for Gramsci is about intellectual and moral leadership.
Okay.
Think of it as the invisible glue of ideas that holds society together. It's how a ruling class embeds their values, their worldview, so deeply across society in our culture, our institutions, even in what we consider to be common sense, that people largely consent to their rule, often without even realizing it. It's not just about the threat of force or direct economic control.
It's about shaping what we consider normal, natural, even desirable.
That's right.
On a societal level, almost behind the scenes.
Exactly. It's this pervasive influence that shapes our very understanding of the world. And Gramsci contrasted this with a more simplistic view of Marxism, what he called economic determinism.
Economic determinism.
The idea that the economic system automatically dictates everything else, like politics and culture. He argued for a much more nuanced understanding, where politics and culture have their own real and significant influence.
That makes sense to me, because it's not just about who owns the means of production. It's about who controls the dominant stories and ideas.
Exactly. And this understanding of hegemony leads to his concept of the state.
Okay.
Which, for Gramsci, goes beyond just the formal government.
Right. And he talks about state and civil society. What's the key distinction there?
Gramsci argued that modern states, particularly in the West, don't just rely on what he called political society, the government, police, army, legal system to maintain power. They also depend heavily on the consent that's actively generated within civil societies.
Civil society.
Yeah. This includes things like schools, the media, cultural organizations, even our everyday social interactions. These are spaces where ideas and values are shaped, debated, and disseminated. Think of it as the ecosystem of everyday life, where our beliefs and values are kind of cultivated.
So civil society is like this huge interconnected web that subtly shapes how we all see the world and our place in it.
Yeah. Think of it as a series of trenches.
Trenches.
Yeah.
Right.
He used this metaphor to explain how civil society acts as a powerful defense for the state.
Okay.
Even if there's, let's say, an economic crisis or some kind of political instability.
Right.
These deeply ingrained cultural norms and institutions, they can really buffer the ruling class from direct challenges. He even coined the term integral state to describe this combination of political society plus civil society, where hegemony is protected not just by consent, but also by the potential for coercion if needed.
Okay, so it's not just power being imposed from the top down. There's this whole foundation of consent that's built and maintained in civil society.
Exactly.
And this kind of shifts the strategy for social change, doesn't it? He talks about moving from a war of maneuver to a war of position.
Right.
So what's the difference?
So the war of maneuver would be that classic revolutionary idea, a swift, direct frontal assault on the state. But given the strength and depth of civil society in modern states, Gramsci argued that a more effective long-term strategy is a war of position. This is a gradual, protracted struggle to win hearts and minds.
Okay.
And build a counter-hegemony within civil society. It's like laying the groundwork for a new consensus from the ground up.
So it's a much more patient and nuanced approach to social change.
It is. And all of this connects to his concept of the historical bloc.
Historical bloc.
Right. This is the alliance of different class and social forces. They're unified under a particular hegemony.
Right.
A way of seeing the world that ultimately benefits the dominant class.
So to really challenge that established order, you need to build a new historical bloc with its own compelling vision of the world.
That's right.
Now, who are the key players in this ongoing struggle for hegemony? Gramsci had some interesting and quite broad ideas about who counts as an intellectual.
Yeah.
So his definition of intellectual was much wider than just academics and philosophers sitting in universities.
It was much broader. For him, an intellectual is anyone whose social function involves organizing consent, communicating ideas, educating others.
Okay.
This could include teachers, journalists, religious leaders, even industrial technicians and managers. Anyone who plays a role in shaping how people think about and understand the world around them. It's about the function they perform in society, not just their job title or formal education.
So if your role involves influencing how others think, you're functioning as an intellectual in Gramsci's view.
Exactly. And he further distinguished between organic intellectuals and traditional intellectuals.
Okay.
Organic intellectuals are those who emerge directly from a particular social class.
Okay.
And they articulate its interests and worldview.
Hmm.
Think of like a union organizer who becomes a powerful voice for the workers they represent.
Got it.
Traditional intellectuals, on the other hand, are often seen as being somewhat detached from specific classes,
Huh.
often remnants of past eras, like certain types of clergy or academics, who might maintain social prestige but aren't necessarily tied to the immediate interests of the current ruling class.
But even those so-called traditional intellectuals can still play a role in supporting and maintaining the existing hegemony, can't they?
Absolutely. They might lend their authority, their perceived objectivity, their prestige to the dominant worldview, often reinforcing the status quo. Gramsci emphasized that any class seeking to establish its own hegemony needs to cultivate its own organic intellectuals,
Okay.
people who genuinely understand and can articulate the interests of that class,
Hmm.
and where possible, win over or neutralize those traditional intellectuals.
Okay.
He even reflected on his own experiences with the journal Ordine Uovo in Turin, seeing it as an explicit effort to cultivate intellectualism and critical thinking among the working class.
So it's about empowering people to not just accept the dominant ideas, but to critically analyze their own experiences and develop their own understanding of the world.
Exactly. And a crucial way these intellectuals operate is through the realm of ideology and what Gramsci famously called common sense.
Common sense. It sounds
Okay.
so straightforward,
Right.
just the everyday unquestioned assumptions we all share. But Gramsci saw something much more complex and significant there, didn't he?
He did. For Gramsci, ideology isn't just a set of abstract or consciously held beliefs. It's a fundamental conception of the world that actually unifies human practice. It has real, lived, psychological validity for people, deeply shaping how they understand their experiences and their place in society. Common sense, then, is this collection of uncritical, often fragmented popular beliefs and attitudes. It's influenced by a whole range of factors: religion, folklore, tradition, the dominant ideology circulating in society. So it's not necessarily coherent or even logically consistent.
So it's this almost unconscious collection of ideas that we often don't even think to question or
Right.
analyze.
And Gramsci astutely pointed out that ordinary people often hold what he called a contradictory consciousness.
Okay.
They might hold beliefs that are actually in direct conflict with their lived experiences or their objective interests. This is precisely where hegemony operates most effectively, It can mask these contradictions, making the existing social order seem natural and inevitable, thus maintaining the status quo.
So a key role for those organic intellectuals is to engage with this common sense,
Right.
to help expose those underlying contradictions and guide people towards developing a more coherent and critical understanding of the world.
Yeah. He used the idea of needing to renovate common sense,
Yeah.
to renovate and make critical and already existing activity.
Mm.
It's not about just imposing a completely new and foreign ideology from above. It's about working with the existing beliefs and experiences of people,
Mm.
asking questions, and helping them to see things in a new and more empowering light. This directly connects back to the idea of needing to reach the simple, the everyday person, to truly embed a counter-hegemonic worldview.
This sounds like a really profound and long-term project,
It is.
this reshaping of common sense.
It is, and it connects very deeply to Gramsci's broader philosophical approach, which he called the philosophy of praxis.
Now, this is where he really distinguished himself from some more traditional interpretations of Marxist thought, especially his critique of what he called vulgar materialism. What was his issue with that?
That's right. He was critical of interpretations of Marxism that he saw as overly deterministic,
Right.
essentially reducing everything in society to the inevitable outcome of underlying economic forces.
Right.
He specifically took issue with the work of thinkers like Nikolai Bukharin, who presented historical materialism almost as a kind of scientific sociology with these predictable and unbreakable laws. Gramsci felt this approach downplayed the crucial role of human agency, culture, and political will.
And Gramsci's alternative, this
Yeah.
philosophy of praxis, what was the central idea there?
Drawing significantly on the work of Antonio Labriola, Gramsci emphasized the fundamental unity of theory and practice. He saw Marxism not just as a detached way to observe and analyze history, but as a philosophy that's inherently about transforming the world. And that transformation begins with changing popular consciousness. Historical materialism, for him, wasn't just about understanding the past. It was a dynamic guide for actively shaping the future through this ongoing cultural and moral reform.
So it's a much more active and engaged form of Marxism. It's as much about what we do with our understanding as it is about the understanding itself.
Exactly. And for Gramsci, a crucial test of an ideology's validity wasn't solely whether it accurately reflected some objective reality, whether it could gain mass adhesion,
Okay.
whether it truly resonated with people and motivated them to collective action. That widespread acceptance is a key indicator of its power and relevance.
Which brings us right back to the concept of hegemony. You need that broad acceptance for an ideology to become a truly powerful force for social change.
Precisely. And this leads us to Gramsci's, perhaps surprising, concept of the Revolutionary Party as the modern prince.
So this is a clear nod to Machiavelli, which is quite intriguing.
It is.
What was he trying to convey with that analogy?
Well, Gramsci saw the Revolutionary Party as playing a somewhat analogous role to Machiavelli's prince, a guiding force possessing both strategic intelligence and the unwavering political will to construct a new political and social order. He also drew inspiration from Sorel's concept of myth, a powerful unifying idea or narrative that can galvanize a diverse and dispersed population. For Gramsci, the Revolutionary Party is this crucial organizer of a total and integral conception of the world, offering a coherent alternative to the existing hegemony.
So it's not just a political organization focused on elections and policy.
Right.
It's almost like the architect of a new culture and a new way of thinking.
In a way, yes. He saw this pressing need for the party to act as a Jacobin force, drawing a parallel to the radical phase of the French Revolution, to awaken and organize what he called a national popular collective will. This involves not just traditional political action, but also that intellectual and moral reform that we talked about. The ultimate aim is the creation of a superior, total form of modern civilization.
And how did he envision this modern prince being structured and operating?
Gramsci envisioned a party grounded in ordinary average men at its base, but guided by a strong, cohesive, and intellectually capable leadership.
Okay.
Connected by what he called an intermediate element, essentially dedicated organizers and educators.
Okay.
He advocated for democratic centralism as the intended method of organization. Robust and open discussion of ideas and strategies within the party. But once a decision is democratically reached, there's a unified and unquestioning commitment to its implementation. The underlying idea was to strike this delicate balance between broad-based participation and effective, decisive leadership, avoiding both rigid bureaucracy and chaotic fragmentation.
It sounds like a challenging balance to achieve in practice.
Oh, it is. Now, Gramsci's profound ideas, developed during his difficult years of imprisonment, faced a somewhat complex and evolving reception after his death.
Right, they weren't immediately and universally embraced or understood in the same way.
No. Initially, the Italian Communist Party, under the leadership of Palmiro Togliatti, they significantly shaped the interpretation and dissemination of Gramsci's work. They emphasized aspects that aligned with their own prevailing political strategies and the dominant Soviet orthodoxy of the time. They tended to downplay any potential tensions or disagreements between Gramsci's thought and Stalinist ideology, often stressing his supposed continuity with Leninism.
So there was a bit of selective interpretation happening.
To a certain extent, yes. However, over time, as more of his extensive writings gradually became available, and as scholarly engagement with his work deepened, Gramsci's truly unique and far-reaching contributions began to be recognized more widely, extending far beyond the confines of the communist movement. His concept of hegemony, in particular, has proven to be incredibly influential across a really diverse range of academic fields and intellectual disciplines.
You see his ideas popping up in cultural studies, sociology, political science, even international relations and post-colonial theory.
Right.
It's really remarkable.
It is. Think about how we today analyze the role of media, popular culture, and the way dominant narratives are constructed, maintained, and challenged in contemporary society. Gramsci's framework provides this incredibly powerful lens through which to understand those complex dynamics. His core insights into the relationship between power, culture, and ideology continue to resonate deeply and offer invaluable tools for critically analyzing these pressing social and political issues of our time.
So despite being rooted in a very specific historical context, his ideas have this incredible, enduring relevance for understanding the world we live in today.
They really do. He offers us a sophisticated way of understanding how power operates in these multifaceted ways, going far beyond the exercise of brute force or simple economic control control, powerfully highlighting the absolutely crucial role that culture and ideology play in shaping our world and our understanding of it.
So to bring our deep dive into Gramsci to a close, we've explored how this radical Italian thinker, writing under the challenging circumstances of imprisonment, developed this incredibly insightful framework for analyzing power in society. So key takeaways: hegemony. This idea that intellectual and moral leadership is often more effective than force in maintaining rule. The complex and dynamic relationship between the state and civil society, where consent is actively shaped and manufactured. The vital yet broadly defined role of intellectuals in shaping ideas and maintaining or challenging hegemony. The subtle but powerful nature of ideology and common sense. And this long-term strategic approach of a war of position as a means of achieving fundamental social transformation.
And his philosophy of praxis serves as a potent reminder that ideas aren't just these abstract theories confined to academia.
Right.
They're powerful tools for both understanding and actively transforming the world around us. And his concept of the modern prince really underscores the critical role of organized political action in this ongoing historical process.
So as you navigate your own life and observe the world around you, think about Gramsci's ideas. Consider the various sources of influence that you encounter every day.
Right.
The media you consume, the institutions you interact with, the everyday conversations you have. Yeah.
How might Gramsci's concept of hegemony be subtly operating in your own life and within your community? What are some of those seemingly unquestionable common sense beliefs that shape our collective understanding of the world?
That's a good question.
Hopefully, these deep dive into the profound and still relevant work of Antonio Gramsci has offered you a valuable new lens through which to critically examine this intricate and often unseen dance of power and influence that surrounds us all. And we encourage you to delve further into his writings and continue exploring these incredibly important ideas.
Absolutely.